It's time to get your head out of your ass and start creating a life of no regrets. Whether you want to lose weight, get rich, or manifest a hot threesome on the beach, you're gonna wanna turn this up. This is Goals, Grit, and some woo-woo shit with your host, best-selling author and professional butt kicker, Una Duncan.
Hey, welcome to Goals, Grit, and some woo-woo shit. I'm your host, Una Duncan, and today's episode is for you. If you have a tendency to fall off the rails when you're working towards your goals. So here's what I'm talking about. You've set a goal. Let's say you're going to write a novel, or you're going to meditate every day, or you're going to start a new business, or you're going to fucking quit social media forever. And at the point of setting the goal, it feels so fucking right in your body. You know, this is the thing that you should do. You recognize that if you did this thing, it would be like fulfilling your unrealized potential. You know that your best self, the self that you want to be, is someone who is doing this thing, whatever it is. And by the way, dude, oh my God, when you get in that mode, harness that certainty and that energy. In all my goal setting workshops, we get so fucking clear and so fucking fired up. And then I make people take a 10-minute action right there, right after setting the goal. When you're in that state of feeling so clear on what you want, you should immediately take a tiny step towards it happening. Like just a 10-minute action, like email a friend who's got some experience with this goal and ask them if you can meet them for coffee. Buy a book that teaches you how to do that thing. Google what a villa in France really costs and whether there's international financing or whatever. Just like do something that sets the ball in motion. And then you get into preparation mode. You know, this is when you do everything you need to do to get ready. You buy the stuff that you'll need. You know, you get the groceries if it's a wellness goal. Maybe you buy an online course, or you download an accountability app, or you get whatever equipment you need. And you might turn to your family and announce to them, all right, everyone, don't expect me to be making your lunches anymore because I'm leaving early to cycle to work now in preparation for my triathlon. Or whatever. And then you start and it's so awesome. You arrive to work and you're all bragging to your colleagues how refreshed you feel after your cycle and how the rain doesn't even bother you. Or maybe you started your morning creative writing and you're thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It's so peaceful when everyone else is sleeping. And I feel like I've accomplished so much before the rest of the world even has breakfast. And look, oh my gosh, I've actually started making progress on my book. These riches of creative genius have been locked away from the world for too long. Anyone who doesn't get up at 5 a.m. is crazy. Basically, this is when you hit the honeymoon phase of new habits. And oh my gosh, dude, if you are in that honeymoon phase right now, I am so pumped for you. It feels so good. Obviously you get where I'm going and that I'm going to tell you that this probably won't last, but dude, I'm not shitting on this phase. It doesn't matter that it's not permanent because the honeymoon phase is the best time to harness all that newbie energy and to reinforce your new habits when they're feeling so fresh and fun and exciting. And here's what I mean by reinforce. I mean, like, create structure around the new habit, get other people involved, eliminate obstacles, and make it feel as fun and rewarding as possible. Because one day it's not going to feel like that. You know, maybe you had a shitty night's sleep and that 5 a.m. alarm clock feels like some asshole just fucking punched you in the face. And, one day you are not going to have a great writing day. Every sentence that comes out of you is going to feel like grade 7 emo bullshit and you're going to want to puke all over your computer. Or maybe just one day you brought a salad to lunch and everyone else is going for tacos and margaritas and you feel like a big fucking losery loser. Or maybe you realize that biking to work is actually not going to work for your family at all because then you don't have the car to pick up your kid for swimming or whatever, okay? Or maybe nothing happens. Other than after a while, biking in the rain and the 5 a.m. wake-ups just kind of lose their novelty appeal. And so you start making exceptions to your new habits. Like, I get up at 5 a.m., but only if I've had a good sleep. Or, I don't bring my salad every day. Maybe you start sneaking a little social media here and there. Maybe you stop biking to work every day and you tell yourself, I'll do my triathlon training on the weekend. Any of that sound familiar? And I just want to pause here for a second because I want to check in with you. At this point of the story, What are you thinking and feeling? Like, do you have this yucky sense of like, oh God, I know where this is going. I recognize this story. Do you find that you're being kind of like judgy of these fictional people for being slack asses? Or are you thinking, oh no, they're so screwed. There's no way they're going to get their goals now. They're not doing their habits as like properly as they should. Because dude, this is how most people judge themselves when they get into this situation. They start to tell themselves a story about how they've fallen off the rails. And the first thing that people do is they're like, all right, let's get back on track. Okay, sucked with my habits this week, but I really like those habits. So I'm going to reset on Monday and I'm going to be better next week. And of course, next week brings the same life circumstances. So after a couple of not so successful resets, the people give up and then they tell themselves that they suck, that they have no willpower. They might wallow in that for a while until that becomes too painful. And then they decide, or some marketer will convince them, it's not your fault. You just need to try something different. And then they'll get all excited about something else. And then they're back in the honeymoon phase, which feels so good. And then the cycle starts all over again. And dude, this cycle is so ubiquitous that most of us don't even realize that we're trapped in it. Like, I didn't recognize it until I sat in the middle of hundreds of people doing this cycle over and over and over again. And then my blind ass saw the pattern. And I'll tell you the story. So as most of you know, I started as a personal trainer and a fitness instructor in Toronto, and I had a boot camp company. And although I was I was in pretty good shape, I could do all the push-ups and I could do the jump squats and all that stuff. But I didn't have a particularly lean body composition because I could also kill a pint of beer before most people had their second sip. Meaning that I was all about the fitness, but I didn't pay too much attention to the nutrition. And if you had asked me at the time, I would have said, oh no, I eat really healthy. And by that, what I meant was that I had cherry picked my favorite rules from the last 20 fucking diets that I had been on. And I created my own like semi-psycho version of what healthy was. Like low carb, also pretty much low fat, soups and salads, always safe. White bread is basically nuclear waste. And so is aspartame and MSG, but I'm not really sure why. I don't know, something like that. I had a whole bunch of fucking rules. But then in January 2016, on a whim, I bought a white label meal plan from an actual dietitian who knew what the fuck they were doing. And then I recruited a handful of my clients to do it with me. And we had like jaw-dropping results with this nutrition system. Like, I'm talking serious honeymoon phase. It was raining compliments. I couldn't shut up about this program unless I was pausing for a sec to like flex in the mirror. So I tweaked the program a little bit. I consulted a local nutritionist to help me, make a vegetarian version. And then I launched the 28-day transformation to the world. And the next group had the same results, and the next one. And then people were saying, Una, what do we do after the 28 days? And because I didn't know any better, and because frankly, I didn't have anything else to offer people, I was like, by golly, we do it again. And we keep on doing it. And, and just to be clear, that's not a bad idea because of lack of variety. There are tons of people who get in incredible shape and get all the nutrients they need, and they basically eat kind of the same thing every week-ish. It's bad because I assumed that if we kept repeating this seemingly magical 28-day program, we could live in that honeymoon phase forever. And so fast forward a couple of months, there's like 100 of us repeating this thing over and over again. And I'm noticing that even some of the most enthusiastic people are kind of starting to fall off the radar a little bit. And some people have definitely they've lost a ton of weight and they're feeling super amazing and successful. But some people have really stalled in their progress. And I noticed they're constantly posting things like, oh, I screwed up. This week is a gong show. I'm just going to start over on day one. Anyone else want to reset with me? And, because we all have that part of us that's like a judgy asshole. That part of me was reading these things thinking like, oh, it's not working for you because you're not fucking doing the program. You're not sticking to the program. But then I looked at the people who were successful and I had this epiphany. I was like, wait a second. They're not really sticking to the program either, because the magic was not sticking to the program 100%. You only do that in the honeymoon phase. The magic is when the honeymoon phase is over and you actually start customizing your new habits to actually fit your life. And I know that might sound like a big fucking duh, But this is what people are actually doing when they tell themselves that they're falling off the rails. When most people think that they're failing, it's actually just the beginning of the real transformation. When you establish some new habits, and you do want that honeymoon period where you create the awesome new foundations, when you embrace change and you see how good it feels, but then when you start to wobble on those habits, you haven't fallen off the rails. You haven't failed. You don't need to start again. That is diet culture talk. And by the way, diet culture mentality exists far beyond the weight loss industry. Diet culture mentality is just a reflection of broader social requirements for perfectionism, for control, especially of women, of pushing people into binaries and all or nothing thinking, and everyone requiring external validation and status just to feel like a fucking human. Whatever goal you are working on right now, my friend, you are probably susceptible to those social forces, and you can counteract them and that bullshit by listening to me right now. You didn't fall off the rails. Instead, you made a choice, and you made that choice to fulfill a need. Maybe it was a need to fit in, a need to feel free, a need to feel treated. Not because you suck, not because you have no willpower. And then you learn from that choice. And now you're in a better position to decide, did that choice fulfill that need? Is there another way I can fulfill that need? Is this choice getting me closer to my goals or further away from my goals? And then you make a more informed choice next time. That is not falling off the rails. That is learning what works for you. And this is what we call stage 2 in our Masters of Fitness Awesomeness program. All other programs, and frankly, me, when I started in 2016, will basically take you to stage 1. They'll give you a thing. They'll take you to the honeymoon phase and then tell you to keep going. And then if you don't, well, you might want to try looking into getting more willpower. That is the insidious diet roller coaster. And again, when I say diet, I'm talking about any structured habit that you are trying to do to achieve your goal, but you can't sustain it. So you fall off the wagon, and then you keep trying to hit the reset button until you give up and you try something new. Let me give you an alternative. The moment that your awesome habit starts getting a little wobbly, see that as a sign that you are evolving beyond the honeymoon phase into real fucking life. And this is where you are going to customize and refine the habits that are going to work for you and become automatic so that you can get your awesome goal that you're so fucking pumped about at the beginning. And by the way, that feeling is real. Just because it's harder than you expected, it doesn't mean that that goal isn't for you. In fact, maybe the fact that it's hard is exactly the grit that you need to become the person that you know is the next evolution of you. Maybe that's why you're attracted to that goal. So here's what you're going to do. Number 1, stop feeling fucking sorry for yourself. Stop blaming yourself and stop telling yourself that you failed or that you fell off the wagon or you went off the rails. And just a quick aside, I know I keep pounding that phrase into the ground, but that's because it's been pounded into my fucking head by thousands of clients that use those terms all the time. And listen to what you're saying. I fell off the rails. It's so passive. Like, whoops, I fell versus a choice. I made a choice. Don't tell me that you fell off the rails over the holidays. I would so much rather hear you say, I made a choice to drown myself in turkey stuffing with extra gravy and gingerbread and Bailey's Irish cream for a month. I mean, at least you're owning your actions, right? Do you see how that actually puts you in the driver's seat versus being some passive passenger that, I fell off, And right now, I'm going to even give you better language. You can say, I ran an experiment. So I ran an experiment to see how it would feel if I ate all of my kids' Reese peanut butter cups out of their Halloween candy. I mean, we can all guess the outcome of that experiment, but the point is that the language puts you in a position of non-judgmental scientific inquiry versus passive, whoopsie daisy, look where I fell. Or even worse, a spiral of self-judgment that's just going to leave you to giving up on yourself. No experiment is bad unless you refuse to learn from it. In fact, listen up, dude. Experiments are essential in order for you to customize and create your own habits. that are going to work for you long term. Experiments are essential in order for you to customize and create your own habits that are going to work for you long term versus following someone else's dictated plan. Experiments is how we grow the fuck up. In my program, I say stage 2 is the stage where we stop following the rigid plan, which, as I said, is really important in the beginning. We need that structure. But then it's equally important to do experiments and be kind of rebellious, like a teenager. When I was a teenager, I conducted all kinds of experiments. What would happen if I completely fucked off school for a while? What would happen if I tried really hard at school? What would happen if I went out with a guy mostly just because he liked me a lot? What would happen if I stopped shaving my legs and my armpits? Let's see what cigarettes taste like. Maybe I should start writing in a journal every day. Let's see what happens when I dye my hair with Kool-Aid. I wonder if it makes a difference to hold your breath after you inhale pot. Let's see what happens when I lie to my parents. And let's see what happens when I get really drunk on Dr. McGillicuddy's peach schnapps in a field with my friends and we watch boys jump over a bonfire. As you can guess, some of these experiments went really well, and some of them were fucking moronic. But all of these experiments were necessary for me to become the person I am today. And I am not saying that like, ta-da, here I am, world, I'm all done, because I am so not done experimenting. Some things I've figured out. When I did that 28-day transformation, that experiment with nutrition changed my life. I mean, obviously. When I experimented writing a blog back in the mid-2010s that eventually became my book, that worked. My family's experiment moving from Toronto to Salt Spring Island, that was another home run. Experimenting with going plant-based has completely shifted my identity. This podcast was an experiment. And dude, it still is. This episode is an experiment. I don't know if you like this kind of content. I'm saying this. I'm literally talking to you right now, and half my brain is like, oh, this is too lectury. You should be telling more stories. Keep it light, for fuck's sake. I don't know if they're going to like this. And I don't know until I check the listening stats, which come out in like a million years. By the way, the best way to tell if an episode was a flop is that the percentage listening. So if only 65% of people who started this episode make it to the end, then I know it's not my best content, but I find that out later. And dude, I have had a lot of flop experiments. I spent a year working with an amazing bodybuilding coach, and he was wonderful. And he had me tracking every calorie and macro and lifting insane amounts of barbells. And I am so glad I did that experiment. And it's a hard no for me. That was a flop. I've experimented with so much alternative medicine and pretty much all the trendy supplements, and I never really noticed a difference. So I don't spend money on that stuff anymore. I've experimented with investing in certain relationships. I have invested in mentors that I don't anymore. But you see, even the experiments that were flops are still total wins because they're helping with the process of elimination and decluttering and refining what's right for me. And like I said, this is a work in progress. I am still experimenting around alcohol. I've had years where I was sober, but that wasn't a home run experiment. I've also had years where I drink every weekend, and sometimes the weekends start early. That doesn't feel great either. I am still experimenting with exactly the right structure I need around alcohol now. And by the way, sometimes you do have to repeat experiments because a scientific conclusion about the results of an experiment that you ran in high school, it might not be relevant today. In my 28-day transformation, actually, we start with an elimination protocol where we eliminate and then we gradually add in specific foods like dairy or beans or whatever. And if you are rolling your eyes thinking that sounds like an early 2000s cleanse, oh my God, dude, I totally get it. And to be honest, I keep thinking about cutting this part because it triggers the fuck out of some people. But I don't, because more people have epiphanies, like realizing that now that they're in their 40s, 50s, whatever, dairy, alcohol, caffeine, or whatever is just not serving them. So that experiment is more often than not a success. This makes me think of all the people I hear saying, now that I'm menopausal, nothing is working. Or, everything has gone downhill after I hit 40 or whatever. And I'm thinking it's because you're doing all the same shit you've always done. You are different. Your body is changing and evolving, and that's a good thing. That's what happens when you don't die. But as you change, you've got to run some new experiments. You got to see what works for you now. As I mentioned above, one of the most impactful experiments I've ever run was shifting to a plant-based diet for me. I don't talk about it a lot. This isn't a vegan-centered podcast, and I don't think I come off as evangelical about this. I mean, you can message me and say, oh no, you come off as a total fucking douche about that. I'm open to that feedback. But I do know that a lot of people in my world are, just like a little bit vegan curious. So I've decided to run an experiment of my own this month, and I'm going to run and offer to the public a vegan only version of my 28-day transformation. And the idea is that it's an experiment for you. Like, see how you feel eating only plants for a month. And our dietitian has already done the work to make sure you're getting all the protein and the nutrients that you need. So all you have to do is follow the plan and no thinking required on your part to run the experiment. And maybe you'll have the fun of an amazing honeymoon phase where you get spectacular results and you can't stop flexing in the mirror. And then when your honeymoon phase ends, then hopefully we'll get to work together to refine your habits so that they're perfect for you and part of your long-term evolution. Or maybe you'll try it and you'll decide plant-based eating is not right for you, in which case, you tried a professionally designed vegan nutrition program for a month and it's a no for you. And either way, you'll have some great data moving forward if this is an area that you've been curious about. Just want to let you know about that. I'll put the link in the whatever, in the notes for this. Either way, listen, dude, if you have ever berated yourself for falling off your habits, here's what I want you to know. You did not fall off the wagon. There is no fucking wagon. What you did was you ran an experiment. Once you own that, then you can also choose to learn from your experiment and refine your actions for a better result next time, a result that's going to move you towards your goal versus away from your goal. There is nothing wrong with running experiments. There's nothing wrong with you for not 100% sticking to your habits. You are fucking awesome. You are fulfilling needs. You are growing. You are learning. All right? Thank you for listening to this experiment of mine today. And if you have anyone in your life that is berating themselves and beating themselves up, and they need to know that they don't actually suck, that they're actually doing everything right, please, please, please send this to them. All right. Until next week. Hey, dude, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you can get the next one. And by the way, if you rate and review this podcast, it really helps me get found by other people who need some goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. And be sure to connect and DM me at Una Duncan on Instagram and let me know what you thought of the episode. Chat soon.